Well, guys, we're at a critical junction in Palantir's journey. I mean, everybody's kind of jumped on the AI Palantir hype that's kind of started up and run up, but it's kind of left all of us in a very, very precarious situation. Some want to build out their positions because they haven't even started yet, and unfortunately, Palantir's on a rocket ship up. And then others of you guys have partially built out your position, but you want to build out more, and again, it's ran up. And then we have kind of the opposite end of the spectrum too, with a lot of you guys being up 100% or more on this stock already. So you're kind of wondering, do I take profits? I mean, I don't want it to come back down to earth and lose all my gains, so what do I do? So let's discuss each one of these today in detail right after you gently tap that like button and consider subscribing too. It's super easy to do if you like the truth without the hype. And if you want to get even more in depth on your due diligence, on doing evaluation, on setting price targets, make sure you check out the pinned comment where you get access to 5 courses and hundreds of tutorials that teach you exactly that, plus the best group of 6 and 7 figure Discord members out there. Plus you get direct access to me anytime you want in my DMs, on our Q&As, and we got a stock analyzer tool that's coming that's going to be completely free for members. So make sure you check out the pinned comment down there and see everything that's included and see if a membership's right for you, because it may or may not be on sale right now. I don't know. It's 4th of July weekend, so, got to do something for the 4th of July. So let's start off with the people who have no position in Palantir, or maybe just a tiny position in Palantir, but they want a big position in Palantir, but they haven't really started yet. So what the heck do you do in that scenario? Well, the first question you got to do is, have you done actual due diligence on the stock? And then have you gotten a valuation? And then have you set a price target on that stock? If you haven't done those 3, you got to start right there, just simply because, Palantir is all the hype and it's all the rage and it's on a 100% run and you're trying to catch the next NVIDIA, the next Tesla, or whatever the case is. That's a terrible reason to invest. You need to put in that due diligence and get that valuation and price target, so that way you understand what you're buying and you understand the long-term opportunity here as a long-term buy and hold investor. And you're not just trying to guess and ride the next hype train up or whatever. We all saw how that all ended after 2020, 2021. That ended in disaster for the vast majority of people. So trying to do that again is a terrible idea. If you want to own Palantir, you absolutely have to do due diligence. Otherwise, it's not going to make a lot of sense. The movements aren't going to make a lot of sense. And when those times come, you're either going to FOMO or you're going to panic sell. You're going to do one of the two or both. And that's just a terrible, you don't want to FOMO in at the highs and then panic sell at the lows. It's the worst scenario you can be in. And I watch people do that repeatedly, time and time again last year, and you don't want to be in that spot. So you have to do that. And maybe you have done your due diligence on the stock, just the stock ran up on you. And the idea of actually coming through with a price target, doing a valuation, is just really, really tough. And I agree, it's not easy to do one on Palantir, especially with it newly being profitable. You don't really have a track record to go back and see, what is fair valuation for this stock. It's a lot more guesswork than it is with a, stock like Apple, for example, where it's very easy to go back and find that information. So I understand that completely. If that all seems overwhelming, no big deal. If you've done due diligence and you want this stock, then all you do is just a simple DCA, guys. Just every pay period, throw whatever dollar amount you want to throw towards it, every pay period, on every Tuesday, whatever system you set up for your DCA. The point is, just keep it simple. Just DCA, so that way, if it runs up, great, you get to enjoy the run up, and you're still buying shares, of course. And if it happens to drop, not a problem. You'll be buying the dip because that's just part of your DCA. It is very difficult to beat a DCA long term. So that's kind of exactly what I do. If I didn't own any shares and I wanted to own shares, that's kind of the blueprint that I would follow to get there. And those of you guys that have your position partially built out, but you're not all the way there, that, you basically started buying and then obviously it ran up on you before you got there, maybe before money came in, whatever the case is, you're in a very similar spot. And I would say to you guys, the strategy, the planning, the everything else is exactly the same. You don't want to be caught not doing due diligence, even if you've already built out a pretty significant position. The critical point for you guys is to just make sure you've done your due diligence. I mean, I can't emphasize that enough. I know I say it too much. I know you guys hate it when I say it. Have a plan, do your due diligence, get a price target, get evaluation, all that sort of stuff, because it's just critical. If you don't have it's like driving a car without wheels. Hey, good luck, Hey, you may love Tesla, but if they deliver you a Tesla without wheels, it's no good. You might as well just sit in your garage at that stage. It's not good for anyone. So that's why I say that over and over and over again. And it's the same exact scenario with those people that don't have a position built out at all. Hey, great. I don't care what your average is, to be honest. It doesn't matter whether your average is 7 or whether your average is 15 or 20. It doesn't really matter at this stage. The point being, you want to own more. And if you're not comfortable setting a price target and being patient and waiting for Palantir to pull back or do anything else like that, that's okay. Then just do the simple DCA. Again, that's the easiest way to just continue to build out that position there. And obviously, if you got a high average, right now at the price, it'll kind of, pull it down some. If you happen to have a low average, it doesn't freaking matter over the long run. And let me give you an example here just to kind of illustrate this. I personally would much rather own 1,000 shares of Palantir at $15 than I would own 100 shares at $7. And a lot of people make that mistake of they own 100 shares at $7 and they don't want to increase their cost basis, so they never buy any more. And then Palantir, maybe in the future, let's just say, I'm just speculating here, turns into a $100 stock. Well, you tell me, would you rather own 100 shares with a $7 average when the stock goes to 100, or would you rather own 1,000 shares at $15 per share if it goes to 100? I know which one I would prefer more, and that's the reason why you can't get caught up on what those great buys were back then and what it is now. You've got to understand you want a certain amount of shares and a certain position in that stock, and negating that because of having a low average and not wanting to increase your average, that sometimes is not necessarily the best scenario over the long run. Now, I completely understand if you feel like it's going to pull back to a certain level and you're very confident in that. If not, you'll just, hey, I'll pay a higher price later on. I'm willing to kind of make that bet. Okay, that makes sense to me. I do that sometimes too. But in general, what I see usually happen is somebody wants 1,000 shares. They got 100 at a great price and they just never get anywhere close to that 1,000 shares because they don't want to average up. And that's a mistake that you make. And that's the reason why sometimes just a simple DCA eliminates that from your thinking altogether. But you got to make sure you're not letting that weigh in on what you're doing. All right. And for all those long-term holders out there, those folks who actually have the position that they want and they're sitting on big profits on this stock, in some cases 100% or more, the question is, what should you do with those shares? Should you go ahead and sell and take that profit, or sell and take some profits, or whatever the case is? Well, my question back to you was, what was your plan in the first place with this stock? And if it was a planned swing trade, hey, that makes perfect sense to me. I understand that completely. I occasionally swing trade as well, not often. But when I do it, I absolutely set a price. And then whenever it hits that price, I sell the stock. So that makes sense to me. But if that wasn't your plan and you want to hold this stock for the next 10 years because you think it's, got a great, it could be $1 trillion plus market cap into the future, then why in the world are you looking to take profits right now? I mean, if you followed all the smart money and all the other folks that were in this stock as it started its run, I mean, the smart time to pull your money was at $9 or $10. And obviously, if you would have followed the money then, you would be obviously left in a terrible situation right now where you got to make a decision. Do I go and buy back in? Obviously, if you want to hold it long term, now you got to buy back in at a higher price. Or, are you kind of playing that market timing game again? Again, I understand that the charts are pointing to this, and I agree at some point in time it has to cool off. It has to come back down to earth. But how far down to earth does it come? Does it ever come all the way back down to 10? Does it go all the way back down to 7 again? The answer is nobody freaking knows. And every time you think you got a feel for it, that's when you're going to make that mistake of, basically selling again, there was a lot of folks telling me, sell, take your profits at 10. Oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. And every single one of those folks is regretting that decision today because right now we're sitting up over $15 and we'll see where we go. Now it's possible we do go back down, but the point being, I don't want that emotion in my game at all. And I don't understand that emotion in that game more importantly. And I'm not a fund. I don't need to show profits to anybody. I don't need to show them that, hey, look at that. I sold it. I bought it at 7. I sold it at 15. Look at me. I'm great. I'm wanting to hold it for the long term. And therefore, I just continued to add over the past year. I didn't play any of these games every time Palantir went on a run. I could have, I guess, but that just would have left me in a terrible position of trading, paying taxes, and then hoping that the stock, kind of goes back to where it had been before. And everybody that was playing that game, or as you saw at the beginning of this year, they got burned eventually and burned bad. And as a long-term buy and hold investor, that's not a trader. I don't care about that game. So for me, that's absolutely not what I would do unless something fundamentally changed for the company or a scenario to where maybe you bought Palantir and you don't understand it. And so you did what we kind of described here and you went and you did your due diligence. You looked at the stock, you looked at everything and you kind of went, man, I'm not sure I see the same thing that Luke sees. I'm not sure I see the same vision there long-term that other people see with this company. And that's 100% okay. And at that stage, if I saw that with another company that I bought and maybe I didn't do good due diligence or maybe I missed something, whatever the case was, then yeah, it makes perfect sense to sell at that time. Now, don't go back and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I sold it. I knew I had it. No, you did your work, you did your analysis, and it wasn't right for you. And you kind of move on from that. That to me would make sense for me to sell. But beyond that, I'm not interested in just selling, taking my gains because it's got to, it's overextended and it's got to come back down. And all these other games like that everybody else plays. You might as well just call yourself a market timer or a trader, and that's okay. But trading is a completely different strategy. If you're a long-term buy and hold investor, then, to me, the prudent thing to do is to hold. If If you want to add more shares, DCA your way in. That's the simplest way to do it. And more importantly, if you're trading because you don't have any money to come in, you need to solve the money problem. And that kind of right there should be priority one, solving your money problem, so you have a pool of money coming in every month, every week, every paycheck, whatever the case is, to actually invest in stocks. Again, I have nothing against trading or anything else. It's just a completely different strategy. And if you're telling me you're a long-term buy and hold investor like myself, the idea of selling and taking profits or taking some profits off the table or whatever the case is, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense, because you're right. Nobody has ever lost money taking a profit. However, they have missed out on fortunes on those shares that they sold if they just would have held them over the long term. That is proven again and again and again in the stock market with great companies. So that's the reason why I choose not to sell, and I'm just looking to continue to add more shares of Palantir. And remember, if you want to take advantage of the sale that's going on right now for my group, where you can learn how to do diligence, you can learn how to do evaluation, you can learn directly from me how to actually set price targets and see my price targets in real time, see all my buy and sell alerts in real time, take those courses, go through all those videos, hang out with the best 6- and 7-figure investors out there trying to help you become a better investor, and get access to that tool whenever it finally releases and you have completely free access to it as a member, make sure you check out the pinned comment down there and see if a membership is right for you. And click this video here if you want to see exactly what I'm buying in this market, and click here to see exactly what my plan is in this market. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.